Learn more at investwithwmg.com.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Remember when NFL standout defensive tackle Dexter Manley testified before Congress that after 4 years of attending Oklahoma State, he couldn't read? Mm-hmm. He was functionally illiterate. It was sort of shocking. You know, of course, people knew that athletes got special treatment when it came to being passed along in high school and even in college. But, Manley, who was high profile at the time, being illiterate was shocking to many. I wish people would still have the ability to be shocked by, like, the NAEP scores that came out a couple weeks ago that we've talked about quite a bit. As somebody observed on X, if you work for the Department of Education and are posting on Twitter about how angry you are about losing your job, please realize only 27% of the school-aged children between 4th and 12th grade will be able to read it. Oh. Not that it's the Federal Department of Education's job, but it speaks to the general failure of government education in this country, which people don't want to talk about because, oh my gosh, yeah, it's like they're congressmen. Congress is terrible, but not my congressman. Oh, the schools are terrible, but not my local government school, even though more likely than not, it's pretty bad, if not terrible, including in the suburbs, which we talk about all the time, but people don't want to confront that. Naperville Central, Hinsdale Central, New Trier, Barrington. There's the same schools that I went to 30 and 40 years ago. No, they're not. And they're not producing anywhere near the same results at exponentially more per student expenditure. We have another story like this, unfortunately, like the Dexter Manley story. It's immediately what I thought of when I read this story about what happened in Hartford, Connecticut, that is. When 19-year-old Alicia Ortiz told Hartford City Council members in May that the public school system stole her education, she had to memorize her speech. That's because she was never taught to read or write, despite attending schools in Hartford since she was 6. Now 19. Or that 19, this comes from a few months back. Ortiz, who came to Hartford from Puerto Rico with her family, when she was young, struggled with language and other challenges along the way. But a confluence of circumstances, apparently apathy and institutional inertia, pushed her haphazardly through the school system, according to her attorney and district officials. She's suing the school district. Boy, what a precedent-setting case this could be. If you could sue school districts for failing to provide you even the opportunity to earn a quality education, well, that may be the only way to get structural change in some of these huge government school systems, like, say, I don't know, Chicago. I was pushed through. I was moved from class to class, not being taught anything, Ortiz told the Connecticut Mirror during a series of interviews. They stole something from me. I wanted to do more, and I didn't have a chance to do that. She had an IEP. Individual education plan. Ortiz was not taught how to tell time or how to count money. She can barely hold a pencil because of unaddressed issues with hand fatigue and disputes about school-based occupational therapy. She learned basic math like addition, but has no other math skills. She's 19.
Oh, it's horrible.
Accommodations in her IEP, which spell out what services students will receive that year, allowed her to audio record classes and meetings with school leadership because of her inability to read or write in high school. Yeah, don't address the inability to read or write with this high school freshman sitting before you. Just let her record the classes. In my review of Alicia's IEP, she was never provided reading instruction, according to a special ed administrator for the district. She said, Alicia Ortiz, she said also she was unlawfully restrained, spent months in classrooms without a special education teacher or paraeducators, and was ridiculed by on-trained staff who would laugh at her.
What?
Since first grade, she said teachers, school leaders, and district administrators failed her. people didn't forget about me. No, people chose not to educate me. People chose not to change my IEP. People chose not to do this and this and that and this and that. I'm the one paying the consequences while those people are still getting their checks. Yeah, she's figuring out how it works. Basically, in high school, these are her words. Basically, in high school, I would go to class, I would record and try to memorize everything the teacher said and what I wanted to write. Then when I went home, I would stay and hear the recordings. I basically went to school 2 times in one day. I wanted to join clubs, but I couldn't do that because I didn't have the time. To this day, I've never been out to a movie theater with friends ever. I didn't have time to have fun. It was either enjoy myself or fail my classes. And maybe if I was more ahead in reading or writing, I would have had time to make friends. And, these stories that bubble up, like, you remember the story that a local network affiliate did in Baltimore a few years ago, where no one in these Baltimore schools was at grade level in reading and math. And the test scores, one kid was basically in the same position as this Aisha Ortiz in Hartford. It was just passed through and through and through until his mom finally figured out what was going on or what was not going on, meaning his education. And she sued the school district, raised a big stink about it. So there's an expose. Everybody concedes that the government schools in particular areas are terrible. Thank God I don't have to send my kids there. They pretend the government schools in the wealthier areas are actually good schools, which they're not. And we just go round and round and round, and then we're stunned to the extent that we have the gumption to pay attention when less than a third of kids 4th to 12th grade are reading at grade level nationally in a system of 50 million kids. It's a big problem. Huge problem.
Beautiful lies.
For more on this and related matters, please be joined by our friend Bob Woodson, founder and president of the Woodson Center, author of A Pathway to American Renewal, Red, White, and Black, Volume 2. Bob, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Thank you, as always. Thank you.
Well, the story out of Hartford that I was just referencing called to mind your friend and a gentleman I had the opportunity to meet with at a Woodson Center event, Brother Carl Hendrick. Carl Hardrick, Brother Carl out of Hartford, Connecticut, one of the sort of the Woodson ambassadors on the ground in Hartford, and the work that he does at the local level. But I mean, it just speaks to the mission field of the Woodson Center and all your allies around the country and sort of the institutional neglect they're up against, doesn't it?
It really does. But I was just thinking of one of the alternatives. And I remember many years ago, Eastside Academy with Marva Collins right there in Chicago.
Yeah.
How a public school teacher, broke ranks and started teaching kids after school. And she got so effective, she started Eastside Academy. And she was attacked by her public school peers because she was breaking the bell-shaped curve. She was actually teaching kids. But she was attacked and had to struggle. And it was only when she was able to demonstrate that she took kids who were failing the Chicago school system, but they were achieving in her class. And she became so effective that white parents were bringing their children in to her school. In Jaime Escalante in L.A., same thing. But there are no Marva Collins Eastside Academy institutions today. There's no Jaime Escalante. We don't have any monuments. No one was able to build on that success because they were resisted by the conventional school systems. And that's what we've got to fight for, what Corey Brooks is doing and others, that there are alternative institutions within Hartford, Connecticut. We've supported groups in Hartford and others that have demonstrated that they can take kids that the public system has failed, and they can educate them. The program that we support at the Pineywood School, a residential school in Pineywood, Mississippi, for 115 years of taking kids from today who are from Baltimore and others, and these kids are in residence there, 2,000-acre campus on a farm. All of the kids are from low-income, low-performing schools. 100% go on to college. with 3 scholarships each. So it's been demonstrated that it isn't a lack of capacity on the part of the children, but it is a failure of the institutions that injure with the helping hand.
Yeah, right. That injure with the helping hand. That's a great line. Right. We still have that today in Chicago. And like when you mentioned Corey Brooks, but also Bob Mazakowski's Chicago Hope Academy. But as you suggest, we can go city by city and you're going to find a couple of these one-offs, but they're one-offs. They're not at scale. They can't accommodate, 300,000 kids like the system demands in Chicago, for example.
Okay, but let me say this to you. If the Democrats can raise and Republicans can raise $1 billion in 3 months and spend it, you mean to tell me we don't have the resources in this country to resource these schools? That's why what the Woodson Center is doing is we're establishing a $50 million Joseph Fund so that when we do have institutions in these communities, we can help them to close the gap between what they're capable of doing and what they're can afford to do. Mm-hmm. Let's make it a priority.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm with you. I mean, I don't know. There's maybe it's just that there's a belief that with the expansion of school choice around the country and more than half the states now school choice programs and what President Trump may be proposing to do with Department of Education funds, that sort of addresses the competition and opportunity question, but clearly it doesn't, and not even close.
No, but I just think when I look at the amount of money that conservatives we spend on think tanks, the amount of money that we spend in opposition to what the left is doing, perhaps one of the ways that we can express our opposition to what the left is doing is to invest in institutions within low-income communities that are run by these young Josephs, and invest to take them as seriously as we do an election.
Yeah.
Maybe, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm meeting with some people, high net worth individuals, to say, if you believe in this country, the kind of examples of people that Trump highlighted in his speech, there are institutions within low-income communities are producing these dramatic transformation and examples of redemption every day. We just need to go to a city, bring 5 of these groups together, and invest in them the way we would a think tank, the way we would a political campaign. Just think about all of the candidates who ran in the Republican primary, how many millions each of them raised. Well, why can't we pay the same attention to these institutions that are generating transformations within these communities? We just have to take it seriously. We're not.
I wanted you to tell you, I saw you tweeted this out about a young man from Purdue who drove 13 hours to attend an event that you put on, a Pathway to American Renewal event. Just to tell this, sort of what Trump was doing yesterday, tell stories that illustrate a larger point. This seems to be one of them. Yeah,
people are, when conservatives concentrate on the opposition to big government and lower taxes, and they come across as small-souled bookkeepers. But because Americans have a desire for a larger vision, and what Trump did by highlighting these people who've overcome great odds and are achieving against the odds, that's what can inspire America. You give people an opportunity to support victories that are possible, and there are, and that's what I was so pleased that the president did that, because we need to institutionalize that approach. Not just make it an episode in life, but let's find out in these how many more examples are in these communities. And I'd like to know more about some of the institutions in those communities that help that dad, that help that young man, those young men, to achieve against the odds. I'm sure they have families and they've got institutions within there that I don't think they did it alone. But the qualities that make these grassroots leaders effective makes them invisible, Dan, because they're not protesting and whining and complaining.
Right.
And we have to be intentional about recognizing their very valuable importance when you're opposed to what the left is doing. Rather than having some white conservatives express that opposition, what would happen if we had 50 black folks saying we are against DEI because this is the detrimental effect it's having in our lives and how it's destroying our communities? Just think about the messaging on that, how different it would be if you had that as a strategy to push back against what the left is doing.
What did that? I mean, I'm just curious. What did that dude from Purdue say to you? I mean, what motivated him?
Helen, this young man, he's a sophomore at Purdue, and I was having an event at Cape Charles, Virginia, a book pre-signing. This young man drove 13 miles. 13 hours. Yeah. He drove 13 hours so he could attend the event because he had read my books and saw some of my interviews. And I asked him about him. I had him come up and speak, and I asked him, and he was going to drive right back because he says, I'm going to rest at a relative's house for 4 hours, and then because I've got class the next morning. Oh. He's a single-parent mom who's sick with some physical illness, but he is working 36 hours a week and going full-time at Purdue. He said, I have middle-class black friends who are from two-parent households who are wealthy by my standards, yet they're complaining about racism. But I want to know more about self-determination by those who achieved in the past, and that's why that I came. And so we are embracing him and supporting him, and I'm connecting him with some of my grassroots organizations in Indianapolis. But Jalen is an example of the thirst that some of these young people have for competent, inspirational models of achievement and self-determination. And so we're going to be working with him, hopefully, so we can reach other young people of his generation who are isolated because they're always surrounded by negative tribalism. But so we believe that there's a group out there like Jalen who is thirsting for information and support.
Bob,
I took all the cash out of my pocket and gave it to him and said, "Here, buy some gas."
Oh, that's nice of you.
That's good.
And I'm glad you're still in contact with him. That's important.
Yeah.
Well, I just talked to him yesterday, and I'm going to do what Trump did to those young men. I'm going to hold him up. I'm going to write up a column about him. We're going to promote Jalen.
Well, there you go. And then when he gets out of Purdue, probably with an engineering degree, then he'll become a Woodson Center donor. So it's smart. Good investment. Bob Woodson is the founder and president of the Woodson Center, woodsoncenter.org, if you want to be supportive. He's also the author of the book, A Pathway to American Renewal, Red, White, and Black, Volume 2. Bob, thank you as always. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories and telling you what they really mean. That show is this one, Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Virago is fending off viruses and making America healthier.